Hi, I'm Don. Welcome to my studio.
Mats and tools are all sponsored by the following brands. Today we paint Gold NMM. Sorry because I find it difficult to say NMM. My first attempt at painting non-metallic metal gold was with this model, and I painted it around almost 10 months ago. I'll put the link on top, but the painting was so inefficient. I used a lot of washes just to push or pull it off, but do check out the video. I painted a lot of non-metallic metal trims or gold trims or metal trims since then, but I haven't really made a video dedicated to gold non-metallic metal. So this video is my first dedicated non-metallic metal gold painting. I made it as comprehensive as I can, and I hope it will be helpful for beginners and for first time attempts on doing non-metallic metal gold. The painting method here was roughly inspired from how Sergio Calvo paints his non-metallic metal. But of course, my work is so far from his. I tried to make this really basic, so we're not doing layering, just basic layering, although we're using our highlight sauce. First step, we paint the base color. You may use any yellow ochre paint or color, but I choose to use the Japanese uniform paint. I like this color so much for my base colors because it's bright and yellow, but it's not too bright, and you don't really have to glaze it down too much because once it dries, it's kind of very matte, and also it's not too yellow. To fully maximize our zenithal underpainting or our light gray underpainting, I could have painted with our pre-highlight color, but that might be confusing, especially for beginners, so we started with the base color. I painted the Japanese uniform color in 3 thin coats, letting dry in between coats as usual. The great thing about this Sergio Calvo method, which is painting the copy bases as he says it, is that we have a nice base color and we have the versatility to paint where the highlights and shadows should be. Now we paint the pre-highlight color. I call it pre-highlight because we'll have a lot of highlight colors later. I'm using sand yellow so that it won't be too vibrant, unlike the ice yellow. Also, I chose to use the sand yellow instead of the ice yellow so that my video will be more unique than other non-metallic metal gold videos. So, kidding aside, the sand yellow is better in my opinion because it's not too stark, it's not too vibrant, and it kind of blends a bit with our previous base color. So, I like the decision. Now, it's a matter of placing the highlight or the pre-highlight color, which is sand yellow, where you think the highlights of the gold armor will be. It's a great option to have a reference when you're doing this. To be honest, I did not put a reference. I was so itchy to use a Sergio Calvo miniature as reference, but I might be copying it too much, so I decided not to use a reference. Basically, you just imagine that the light source is from the top. Also, there will be a bit of reflections from the bottom. Also, you could highlight the pointy areas of the armor or the edges of the armor so that it looks more sharp. Note that we're not doing glazing or even glaring. We just thin down the paint into base color consistency, which is roughly around 3 to 4 parts paint and 1 part water, or in our case, highlight sauce. Basically, we're using the highlight sauce because it's watered down retarder medium, and we're using the glass palette, but if you have a wet palette, you could just use thinner medium or water will do. Some painters call this sketching. Basically, we're sketching or blocking where the highlight should be. This is the most crucial part of the painting process of this non-metallic metal gold because this will dictate where the shadows will be and also where the extreme highlights will be. If you're not confident with your sketching, you may thin down the water a bit more so that your sketches will be lighter or less prominent. But I highly recommend you have a reference and just sketch away. You could always do corrections with the base color or do glazes later if you're not too happy with your initial sketch. Now we've only painted with two colors, which is our base color and our pre-highlight color. And as you can see, it's starting to form our non-metallic metal gold. Now we paint the shadow color. You could choose any yellow-brown color. I chose to use flat earth because I think a lot of people have this color. Thin in base color consistency and just sketch away where you think the shadow should be. There are two main factors to produce really good non-metallic metal, and I'll tell them later once we finish all the basic steps. Now, same as the highlight color but easier because we have the highlight or pre-highlight color already, and you just alternate it with the shadow color. So if you have the sand yellow at a certain area, most likely you'll have the shadow color after the sand yellow color. So basically, it's alternating with the highlight or the pre-highlight color and the shadow color, and also blocking where you think the shadow should be around when, in this case, our painting is the light source is roughly on the top right. So I'm kind of putting more shadows around the bottom left areas of the armor parts. Again, do not worry if you overdo this or if you're not happy with the areas where you painted the shadow color. You could always correct this with glazes or with your base color or even your pre-highlight color. To be honest, this is not really how I would paint non-metallic metal gold because I like glayering, which is glaze medium plus color, so that I have semi-transparent paints. Also, painting non-metallic metal is not as linear as this, but I wanted a very comprehensive video so that some people who are beginners or people who are afraid to do NMM can follow. Now we paint the highlight color. I was about to choose the ivory as our highlight color, but I kinda chickened out. So now we're painting with ice yellow. It's not too far from sand yellow. Thus, if we're not happy with our blocking or painting, we could easily correct this paint. But if you're brave enough, you could paint with ivory in this step and you will yield good results. At this point, we're no longer sketching, we're just doing basic layering. We are basically painting smaller area in comparison to the sand yellow, so the ice yellow is painted in a smaller area so that we kind of produce a glowing or shinier effect. Paint the ice yellow in two thin coats, letting dry in between coats. But as I've said earlier, if you're brave enough, you could paint with ivory and thus you will produce a starker or a more obvious effect. The only problem with using ivory at this stage is that you might need to do more glazes to produce softer transitions. Now it's a matter of just picking your spots, like painting more at the edges of the armor, doing more edge highlighting, and basically making sure that the armor has a shiny effect and that it's very convincing that it's non-metallic metal gold. So this is officially the ugly stage of our non-metallic metal gold because there's no glazing. The transitions are still rough and very sketchy. So the next two steps will smoothen out all these transitions. Now we do dark color glazes. I like using the brown glaze, the black glaze, and also smoky ink. And I use this for glazing the dark areas of our non-metallic metal gold. Since these paints are glaze paints or ink, they're semi-transparent already and you don't need to over-thin them to come up with transparent glazes. This is why I like working with inks and glaze paints because I'm not a fan of like painting with over-thinned or watered down paints, and this is acrylic painting and not watercolor painting. Oh, don't get me wrong, much respect to people who like painting with watered down paints. So now it's a matter of just glazing or like softening and blending the dark areas of the armor parts with these glaze paints. I'm using my detail brush, which is a red grass 00 brush. I'm also using the smoky ink, the watered down smoky ink as our outline paint. So I'm just outlining some of the details of the armors to give it more definition. You could also use sepia ink or even black ink for this job for outlining the outlines of the armor parts. More definition or more outlining will give you like a really convincing non-metallic metal gold look. Now we're going to do light color glazes. I'm using white glaze and tan glaze. I highly recommend both these paints, especially the tan glaze if you paint a lot of non-metallic metal gold. Amongst these three paints, the tan glaze is the most used paint here because it kind of softens everything and it's strong enough to even soften the shadow areas if you want to blend down or tone down or lighten down the shadow areas. Now you can see in the video I'm using gloss white because gloss white is really glossy and it's really nice for extreme highlights. So after painting the gloss white, I will then blend it a bit with white glaze so that it softens a little bit. But if you're really looking for a stark, like a sparkle of sorts in terms of painting a highlight, you may choose not to use the white glaze anymore. Much like in my previous videos, I really highly recommend the gloss white for highlights because it's really glossy and it looks like extreme highlights. It's very convincing. It's perfect for non-metallic metal and steel and gold, and it's perfect. Now you can see the video, I'm using tan glaze to blend all of the rough edges together. As I've said, it's strong enough or opaque enough to like soften the shadow areas. It's also nice to blend with the highlight areas because it gives you more like a more yellow color. So it's perfect for non-metallic metal gold. I cannot really finish the painting of this non-metallic metal gold because I haven't painted the face, the other elements of the model. Once I painted the rest of the model, I can then decide if I need more highlights or I need more shadows. That's it. We've broken down the painting of non-metallic metal gold into 5 simple steps. So, as I've said earlier, the two key factors of a really convincing non-metallic metal are the highlights. The edge highlighting should be really nice and sharp or bright, and also the alternating of shadows and highlights, and that will give you a convincing non-metallic metal. I hope you found this video very easy to follow and very comprehensive. But I won't do this again because I like my glaring.
That's it, we're done. I hope you liked the video. Do like, comment, subscribe, and consider joining the channel so that you'll be part of our Discord community. Saludos!